I always say that to everybody, like, I got a record label, and we talk a lot about that at my meeting, you know what I mean? I'm like, yo, well, there's no difference than us and MMG. There's no difference than us and Death Row back in the day. You know what I mean? There's no difference, it's just that grind. We got the door's wide open. You know what I mean? So I think that, it definitely does take originality, and, I appreciate it. It's more of an appreciation thing, to appreciate real talent. But it is, I see people that suck coming up, and I still just look at them like, yo, get yours, man. Chase your dreams, man. So that, for me, I think that's a beautiful thing, and yeah, that's my piece on that.
I would have to agree and say that the standards of being a hip-hop artist have drastically fallen. Which I'm not gonna sit here and say I don't listen to like 2 Chainz, Future, like all those guys, because obviously like they're putting out music that's, it's quality music to some people, like it gives you that feeling, whether it's like turn up, or whatever it may be. But I just feel like when you look at a lot of the other rappers from like the 90s, they're like, they were out really in the jungle, like competing with other MCs, like they were working on their craft and getting better every day. And you look at some of those MCs that are still around now, they're still nice, but like a lot of people, I feel like just because it's so easy to break into the game, all you gotta really have is swag. They don't really, a lot of these artists don't really develop as a hip hop artist. They just kind of just stay, okay, I'm gonna just wear this polo now, oh, everybody likes it, so I'm still relevant, rather than working on their craft and actually developing and becoming better as an artist. So yeah, like I said, the standards definitely have decreased, but at the same time, I do think it's getting better. There are artists like Kendrick Lamar, Lupe Fiasco. There is still J. Cole, obviously one of my favorites. They're kind of bringing back that 90s feel, bringing back the lyrics and bringing back that content, and I really, I think that's really good for hip hop right now.
Yeah, I would have to agree with what everyone else is saying. The standards have changed, and everything's just pretty much dumbed down right now. You know what I'm saying? Like back then, it took like lyricism and real life lyrics and experience to be a hip hop artist. You had to like show and prove. But now it's pretty much just a good beat and a catchy hook. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much it.
Hip hop definitely changed a lot. I remember growing up watching like people, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Master P, like the way he's living Empire got rich, he used to sell CDs out of his trunk. That's the only way he was able to get his music in. And I don't know if anyone noticed, but like Matt, for instance, like if you walk in and see his CDs on the table, that type of promotion, like being connected to the crowd, like as opposed to like being behind the computer screen. I feel like Max kind of was, killing the game, so to speak. Like people doing it behind the screens rather than actually going out and making sure people can hear you, feel you, like at least see that you're accessible, at least see that you're a real person. Because anyone, I could be behind the screen and just make any type of music you guys like, but I never ever have a chance to meet and see me in person. You may see me in person at a concert, but it's not the same as if I'm out there actually promoting, like on the street, having CDs out, having t-shirts out. Hey, come to this event that I'm doing and stuff like that. I feel like even people like 50 Cent, for instance, same thing with him. He used to sell CDs on his trunk. He used to sell all of them. And I feel like, the type of music that we have nowadays, it's really party music. You don't really get upset, because obviously party music is good, but I feel like the content is diminished as far as like what they're trying to say, what they're trying to convey. Not a lot of substances in the music nowadays. I feel like that's lacking. And the type of people that like the panel was listening to that they mentioned, like for instance, like myself, like I mentioned, Jadakiss, Styles P, especially those 2 rappers, they're not obviously mainstream rappers, like Jay-Z, Nas, and those other people, but yet they're still able to relate to the people on the ground level as well as mainstream, so they're not that liaison. And I was very fortunate enough this past week to meet Styles P at a concert, for instance. Like I was able to actually shake his hand and like, that was good performance you put on. The type of words he said, that was great, I really appreciate the support. Stuff like that, you can't beat that. That's accessible, that's someone that's real, that whenever you listen to that person, that get like as if you saw them yesterday. That's the type of music that I feel like is
going. I like this. We're gonna keep this one going. So Mike, hit it off, and then let's pass this around.
In terms of being a legitimate artist, I feel like I don't know it's an overrated term. I mean, if you're talking about being legitimate in the eyes of the masses, it does take a lot more. I feel like, you know, the industry looks at someone who can bring something new to the table that hasn't been done. And everything's kind of been done. I mean, you can just, they're looking for innovators, someone who can make them money. But to be a legitimate artist, you know, it just has to come from deep within, really. You know what I'm saying? Passionate. If you're passionate about your art, you're a legitimate artist. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to have like all this swag. You know what I'm saying? You go into regular open mics, doing your thing, writing in your notebook, telling your friend right next to you, you're a legitimate artist. You know, but
I like that. I like that.
Okay, so have you ever noticed how your favorite rapper always comes out with an album, you're like, oh, this is tight. But then the second album is kind of like, oh man, I missed the first album. Well, you know what that is? That's money. I'm a businessman. I own my business. I like your style, and your style's connecting with everybody. I like that. But you know what? In your second album, I want you to connect with all the stores, Macy's. I want you to talk about all these chains. I want you to talk about all this money. I want you to talk about all this thing that I'm making. And if you're not gonna rap about that, I'm gonna drop you off the label. Hence, Kid Cudi. So, hip hop to me, I'm gonna dig the first album. But after that, I know it's gonna be all about money, all about getting girls, and all about going to the club and wasting my money. Because that's what they want us to do. But I'm not gonna do that. So, educate yourself, listen to the first album, and then compare it to the second album, and notice how money has changed the second album.
They're awkward for me because I'm loud anyways. So I'm going to talk without mic. And I'm going to go back to your original question, Joy. So what qualifies people to be good hip-hop artists? So I think it's like Waka said, it's drastically fallen. People used to talk about it, like, because I'm older in my brain than I am like in real life. So like, I used to listen to like a lot of 80s back in the day stuff, like Self-Destruction, where like all these hip-hop artists came together and talked about like, don't let this influence you, don't let that influence you, and now we're talking about Papa Molly, I'm sweating woo, like what? Like, Molly is not your friend, guys. Molly is not your friend. So I'm gonna talk about the 4 elements, like MCing, for example, like, I feel like it depends on what you like. For example, I love puns, I love wordplay, because I love playing with words. Very manipulative person.
Okay.
So like Kanye appeals to me because, well, he used to appeal to me because his wordplay was crazy. Like, his puns were crazy. You have to like think 3 times about his words. DJing, I feel like it's changed so much. Like, Eric B and Rakim, like, the DJ had one job, and that was to mix the music, point blank period. Now, the DJ has to talk, but he can't talk too much, because if that's the case, then everybody was playing about it. Like, breakdancing, I feel like it became underground. It evolved, but like real breakdance, because my father, he used to breakdance. Like real breakdancing, like like one of my favorite movies of all time is Breakdance. It's like in 1986. I don't even know if y'all know what that is, but like stuff like that is like it's non-existent. It's like it's extinct. And like as far as tagging goes, I don't feel like tagging is even related to hip hop anymore. People just tag nowadays. They don't even think about hip hop when you tag. So that's my whole take on like hip hop.
All right, I was just gonna say that you know, I feel like in order to properly answer this question, that you really have to consider hip-hop is more of like a compilation of different genres at this point. Like, you know, it's funny how, you know, when it comes to rock, we have grunge, we have this, we have that, but when it comes to hip-hop, it seems like it's only real hip-hop and it's only one way. Like, if you look at Nicki Minaj, is she real hip-hop when it comes to party hip-hop? Yes. Is she real hip-hop when it comes to underground comment? No. Like, you have to, at this point, you have to begin to dissect the culture. And by trying to combine it, that's when you're gonna get this type of reaction. So standards in terms of what, like, am I real Bree as a student business professional right now? No, but am I still Bree? Yes. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, you gotta think about it like that. Because I don't know, I just find it very interesting how we fight that. Like when it comes to pop, is Nicki Minaj not pop because she has a moonwalk? Is like, what does that mean? I don't know. I ask that question to people. How come people don't consider opening up the spectrum of hip hop instead of trying to condense it in 2013?
Okay. Yeah, you said that.
My name is Teddy, and just listening to all you guys, great comments and stuff. But I heard a lot of stuff, people talking about hip hop change, like changing, and some of them has a problem with it. I don't see why people would have a problem with hip hop changing. Now, if hip hop was the same way as whenever it came out, I don't know if it was in the 80s, I would have a problem with it. Because everything is changing. You don't expect things to be like it was way back then. You have to have change. That's what it's all about. So I don't get the whole thing why people's like, this is changing and this is not changing. And hip hop back then, well, maybe I wasn't born back then, but like doing the 81 or whatever. But I think it was like way of an escape. Like people went into it as a like just for fun, like to get out of whatever problem or situation it was in. Like people battle on the street. It was for the fun of it, but now it's like for the money, pretty much. And people say like the requirement for rap back then, you had to be that, you had to be this. Not really. Maybe the technology wasn't all that great back then. Now technology is everywhere. So maybe like in a neighborhood back then, you only had one person with a computer. So for everybody to go to that dude, it would take a while. But here, everybody has a computer, so you can just sit back then and do your own thing. So that's why I think maybe back then there wasn't a lot of rap people than now, because everybody had like access to it.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. Give me a hand for that. A couple more. We're gonna go because I know this question right here is we coming in here.
So, for me, I like stories, and I think universally a lot of people do like stories, you know, even if it's like 200 pages or 15 pages, you know. We connect so well to the story because an author is intentionally thinking of their audience, and they're intentionally thinking of in what way can I use the characters, the setting, the plot to connect to my audience and to have this such a connection that it's almost as if you're in the same room having a conversation about life. And I think with hip hop especially, I mean, with any of the four aspects of it, I mean, you're telling a story. And if it's a surface level story, no one really wants to read it, you know, at the end of the day, because it's just a surface level story. You're just talking about going to the mall or something like that. But when you can get in depth with your story in whatever way, in whatever channel you use, I mean, you can really connect to other people from different cultures, from different people groups. And I think that is why it's lasted so long. So and in regards to what he said, I don't know if it's an issue of change, it's an issue of content.
I mean, to close that, we need to understand, generation change, the game changed. And the game changed for a good cause. Because I grew up in Newark, New Jersey. I was 6, I got my first gap. So think about it. Back then, hip-hop is all about gangs and violence. That's how it was. Okay? Now we're talking about 2013, whatever we listen to. Everybody's moved. So all we have to do, just go along with whatever we listen to. But me, I'm still not against that shit. I mean, you can pick and choose to whatever you want to listen to. You know what I mean? Most everybody Everybody knows me here. I'm great. I never changed. I'm still the same old G.
That's what I'm talking about right there. Kind of shut that down. With that being said, I know you've all heard this. No matter what walks of faith or belief you come from, there's nothing new under the sun. Even when hip hop first started, there was these conversations going on between the artists, the breakdancers, the graffiti artists. Who's real? Who's not real? You changing the game. Stop changing the game. Breakdancers from the East and the West Coast was having beef with each other because there was different styles of dance. On the West Coast, they were popping and locking. They weren't going on the floor. So somebody said breaking. Breaking was an example of West Coast breakdancing, West Coast street dancing. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the movie Beat Street. Beat Street was like the answer to that. That was East Coast breakdancing. They was hitting the floor. That was in constant battle. And then you had the bigger market industries. Once that got to the point where you had breakdance start to get out to the predominant masses, the white masses, the masses with the money, it became something that they did at the beginning of the Olympics. Then you started seeing it in McDonald's commercials and things like that. So a lot of the original street dancers was like, what the hell is this? You know what I'm saying? Now we got Ronald McDonald doing backspins and stuff like that. They're doing it at the beginning of the Olympics. They were even thinking about having, and I remember this, they were having a conversation back in the late 80s, early 90s about making breakdancing a part of the Olympics, an Olympic sport, which was great because it was starting to reach out to other countries. However, the people who started it in the hood were like, what? We're not getting no recognition for this. You know what I mean? So this type of conversation was taking place even back then, and it continues to happen now. So I think that debate is good in a sense because you get your solidarity, but at the same time, you get your new nuances, which makes hip-hop fresh. There were corny people back then. There are corny people now. Nonetheless, you still have the right for hip-hop to be great or bad. You know what I mean? So that was that type of conversation was taking place back then as well as now. And I think as long as this conversation is as heated as it is, hip-hop will stay alive because people are still going to want to add their own piece to it. So, next question, because we actually, as we go along, we touched upon a lot of these questions. One that hits home with me, and hopefully it hits home with everybody else, is how does hip hop fit into faith and religion? Like, how does hip hop permeate the wall of faith and religion? Does it match? Should it be there? Should it not be there? That type of question. Okay, you can start off.
I feel like it could get sticky in certain aspects, but I feel like it has both positive and negative influence. I feel like positive in the sense that you do have gospel rap, you do have gospel, R&B, stuff like that. Hip hop is just merely not just you rapping. There's also singing, there's also R&B, there's also poetry, and stuff like that. But I feel like with religion and faith, I just feel like it gives a chance to people to kind of express themselves. Like hip hop is really a platform, and any type of walks of life that you're able to come from, whether you're from a certain, you believe in a certain creed or a certain part of a certain denomination, anything that you're able to speak upon, your experiences, hip hop gives you that platform, so to speak. And for the negative aspect, I feel like you can say, I guess, people get closed-minded, the closed-mindedness of like religion. A lot of people don't have the open mind to understand like hip-hop is really just art. It's not literally, it's more figurative. It has more meaning than expression. It's not just, is what it is all the time. I feel like a lot of people kind of get those mixed up as far as like, the hip-hop that I'm listening to, is it explaining what I'm trying to say is that the whole thing about it being negative is I feel like people don't get a chance to kind of just sit down and actually listen to what the music is trying to say. People just hear the music and hear like, oh, they talk about guns, they talk about knives, they talk about going to the clubs, but the people that talk about these things, they have to shed light on it. Like a lot of these rappers, if you think about it, like a lot of these people, some of them are biblical. Some of them quote passages from the Bible in their verses. Some of them reference God a lot. Not saying that, you know, they're almighty, but, you know, it gives them a perspective like, yeah, we are all the same, we all go through the same thing. And I feel like religion and faith kind of suppresses that aspect as far as like, it kind of creates a separation, like, you guys are gangbangers, and we're here, we're holy, we're Christians, and, you know, we're goody people. Like, it's not like that. And I feel like hip-hop gives, you know, a certain, like I said, sticky, because, you know, certain people don't understand as far as, like, trying to understand where people are coming from. So I feel like it being negative, people just have to kind of just, like, sit down and actually listen to what the music is trying to say, as opposed to kind of just judging. I feel like religion and faith kind of puts that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with what EK was saying. You know, I feel that, you know, hip hop relates to religion in many ways. Just because I just feel like most rappers are Christian. You know what I'm saying? It's just not even regardless of the fact of what they talk about. I just feel that they grew up Christian. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, just basically they're just trying to express themselves by using references from the Bible, you know what I'm saying, and that's pretty much it.
So kind of tough question, but I think that hip hop relates to religion and faith. I pretty much think that a lot of hip hop artists use faith and religion as kind of like the vehicle to like drive their points through. Like a lot of them, they're not obviously rappers aren't the most righteous individuals, a lot of them, but you know, everybody has some good in them, and they, like they said, a lot of rappers do use a lot of quotes from Bible or the Quran or different other religious transcripts or whatever you want to call them to pretty much push their idea of what they're trying to get through in the song. You know, even if they don't always believe in it, it's an art. They're telling a story, and they're using the Bible and faith as, like I said earlier, the vehicle to just get their message across. I think that's really prevalent in hip hop, and I think it's a good thing when you put religion and faith in hip hop, because it starts discussions, and it really stimulates a lot of discussions as far as.
You're on the right track. You're following.
I'm about to sit down. You get back to me.
I mean, yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with everybody, what they're saying. You know, definitely religion is very prevalent in all music, and I think especially in hip hop, because hip hop is just a really, I want to say hardcore type of art form. Is really deep, very deep. Not to say that no other form of music or art is deep, but hip hop is very deep, and I think that it almost is a direct correlation to things like religion, because it's things that people live by. You know what I mean? People are living by, you know, an album, you know, Dr. Dre's album, like people living by the Bible. You know what I mean? And it's not a bad thing. You know what I mean? Because that's what hits home for them. You know what I mean? That's how they get through their days. That's how they regain faith. That's how they lighten up. You know what I mean? And go through certain situations. And I know for myself, being a religious man, you know, I definitely, you know, all the time before I go on a show, before I do something that I really need some strength, man. You know, it always hits home for me, and that's what really keeps me going. You know what I'm saying? So I could imagine that other hip hop artists probably do the same. But like I said, I think it's definitely just something that a lot of people live by, same as religion. So it definitely a direct correlation, I would say.
I think some of the Christian rappers, like Lecrae, Flame, Kirk Franklin, I mean, there's a bunch of them. They would find like commercialized hip hop very degrading to religion. And I say that because you got really, you know, big names, and they call themselves gods, and they call themselves, I mean, Kanye had Jesus Walk With Me as a single a couple years ago, and I mean, that song is fresh, but now you got Kanye talking about money, cars, and hoes here, you know, and I don't think any pastor is happy about saying, yeah, Kanye came out of my chorus, and now Kanye is rapping about money, cars, and hoes out here after having a single, you know, Jesus Walks With Me, out on the radio. So it can be degrading. And I'm not saying I'm religious, but if I was, I'd be kind of pissed at some of them. Like, I mean, there's the whole Illuminati now is hand in hand with hip hop, whatever that even means. I don't want to start a whole conversation on that. But you know, you got all these people supposedly selling their souls to the devil, and I mean, they're taking God away from the equation. And many rappers used to rap about God and rap about religion. And like Nas even, you know, he's from Islam, the Islam culture. And I mean, you're seeing that being taken away from rap now because it won't make the radio. And I feel, personally, I think it's degrading. And I think a lot of people would or at least Christian rappers would agree with me.
Yeah.
Because when she brought up the game, when she brought that up, I thought of Meek Mill and his song Amen. So really separating the true religion from it, and so where, you know, I don't know if you all are familiar with the song Amen, but it's getting off all the bad bitches, and the cover of the single was some half-naked women on the crucifix. So I don't think religious people.
Do you even know what I mean, as far as him saying amen, the word amen, if you know that the origin of the word amen and actually where it came from before it even got into Christianity, I mean, we honestly know, let's not even talk about that. But I want to also go off on what Sophia was saying. I understand what everybody over there was saying as well too. I agree with y'all to a certain aspect. For example, when it comes to hip hop, that is a religion to some people because like somebody said earlier, over there, that's all they had. Like you're growing up in a low income neighborhood, and for example, to reference what Sophia said about certain rappers out there calling themselves God. I know she's talking about Jay-Z because he does reference himself to be God. There actually was an interview and they asked Jay-Z how he felt about religion, and what his explanation was, the reason why he believes in God but has his issues with religion, and he said he takes all the good things out of religion and for all religions. He said there's a lot of good things that he takes out, but there's also certain things that he doesn't understand. You know what I'm saying? But he still believes in God at the end of the day. And some people will be like, how can you believe in God and don't believe in Jesus? No. And the way he explained it, and it makes sense, because you're living in a neighborhood where it's like there's people dying left and right. There's little kids that might get hit by a drive-by or something like that. And an innocent little child, you question it, and it's like, why is that? Was it that child's time to go? Why is certain things happening? I don't understand that. Why would God create us to destroy us? So a lot of those people, a lot of those hip hop artists were asking that question. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the same thing with religion. It's a different religion. It's a belief system. So hip hop kind of was their belief system. It's considered to be a way of life. You know what I'm saying? Like you follow that. That's what you believe in. You believe in that because those people that were speaking to you or giving those and telling you this is what happened, go about it this way. It's like it's like the same thing as like John from the Bible. John says this is what happened, blah blah blah, this and this happened, do this, don't do this, oh this is gonna happen to you. Cain and Abel, don't do this is gonna happen to you. It's like those were some of those rappers were saying in their songs. So it's like they're sending out messages and saying go by this, go by that, and those people who grew up not going to church, maybe they didn't have religion in their homes, that's what they believed in. You know what I'm saying? That was their belief system because they survived with it. You know what I'm saying? And the same way somebody survived by going about the Bible, those people survive by going about that way of life. So I mean, are they gonna get condemned for that? You know what I'm saying? These are some of the questions that rappers ask themselves. As far as to say it being connected, I feel like it is because with you being a hip hop artist, you have to believe in it. You have to believe that what you're doing is for you. You have to believe in yourself. You have to have faith in yourself. If I was doing this, I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't believe that something good was going to come out of it. I was going to achieve what I'm trying to do, or I need to have faith, you know, to be able to do that. So of course it's connected. You know what I'm saying? Because just like you believe in your religion and you put those beliefs in there and say this is going to happen because I believe. The person next door to you who all they grew up with, all they had was hip hop, is saying the same thing. This is going to happen because I believe in it, or I believe in this, or I believe in that, or I have faith in it, and that's going to happen. I don't feel like you can condemn somebody for that because they didn't have that. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have the religion, so you can't really say that it's wrong for them not to abide by it, or for them to say, no, I believe in this, or I have faith in that, and I don't believe in this. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like hip hop itself is somewhat like a religion, as well as it is a culture. You know what I'm saying? It's a belief system, it's a way of life. You know what I'm saying? So it definitely is connected in my eyes.
Well, in reference to the whole Jay-Z referring himself as God and the God MC thing, if people look at kind of like the history of hip hop from like the late 80s to early 90s, a big influence on it was the 5% Nation of Islam, which like a lot of people from like Big Daddy Kane to Rakim to Brand Nubian, even Tribe Called Quest, all of these guys followed that doctrine. And the thing about the 5% Nation of Islam is that they would call each other like gods. So like you would hear on like a Brand Nubian track, you refer to each other like, yo, what up, God? And that was a reference from like 5% doctrine, is that it's a whole bunch of like structure to it, that they believe that the black man was the original man on earth, and that God is pretty much within all of us. And that's the same thing, like even like the Rastafarian religion, when they refer to it I and I, which means that God is an identity, but he lives inside of you. So therefore, that's why you refer to yourself as that figure. And also to add on to it, I remember hearing Freeway's album, Philadelphia Freeway, back in high school, and I remember the line, and I'm quoting it. I think he said something that Muhammad walked with a sword, but I walk with a gap. Same-ish, different times. I feel like, as far as like the reference to it and all, back in the day, religion was one of the few outlets that people had to understanding life and understanding like how the world worked. Like if you look like the 1800s and before people really had mass media, that was the way that people looked at the world and how they interpreted it. And so with hip hop now, like everyone said hip hop is religion, I believe it in a sense, not saying that, you know, they're condemning, you know, their own born religion, because a lot of these guys are Christian, a lot of these guys are Muslim, a lot of these guys do believe in that higher power. But as far as hip hop being a religion, you know, people follow it, and that's another outlet for them to, you know, look at the world and how to view things. It's the same thing like, you know, all of us here are in like an academic environment, so we're going to look at things, we're going to do things differently than we would if we were on the outside. That's not saying that we're two different people, they're not saying that we're contradicting each other, but at the end of the day, there's a time and place for everything.
Anybody in the audience?
I'm sorry, but you cannot, Christianity, you cannot mix that with hip hop. Yes, hip hop is a religion. It can be considered a religion, it can be considered a lifestyle, it can be considered a culture. But you cannot mix that with Christianity. With Christianity, you are walking in the shadow of God. You are praising the Lord when you are, you know, with hip hop, you're not, when you're rapping, you're not praising the Lord. You're not at all. I'm sorry, you can't say you're praising the Lord. You can't, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
Hold on, let it finish up, let it finish up.
I know that's funny.
No.
But what I'm trying to say is that, for example, my aunt, she's an amazing rapper, an amazing singer. However, yes, she did want to, you know, go into the whole hip-hop industry. However, she's a Christian, and I mean, most people probably don't believe in that, but, you know, with Christianity, when you are a Christian, you are worshiping God, you are praising God, you are telling people about God. So with that, that's your job. You can't, I'm not saying you can't go into hip-hop, but hip-hop doesn't give you God. It doesn't give you that Christianity that's supposed to be in the church. You understand what I'm saying? So instead of becoming a hip-hop artist, she became a gospel artist. And I just don't think you should be mixing Christianity with hip-hop. You just can't do it.
Can I answer? Oh.
Huh? Okay, like the way I just look at it is, if God were to come down or whatever and listening to the music that, you know, is out in this industry that, you know, hip hop artists are rapping about or promoting, I know he would not be happy. Like Kayla said, hip hop does not reflect what God wants, how God wants us to live our lives. And I mean, you can see this in the Bible, you can see this in his words, like none of that, I can't see the connection, like not even Meek Mill's Amen, like it doesn't, and none of these songs that, you know, Bad Bitches, Turned Up, all these songs, they don't, what is it about God that they mention that God is. You know, God is patient, God is love, God is, you know, he's all of these things. Not, you know, he's not talking about bad bitches and getting money and popping mollies. Like, I don't understand.
So if God is love, right?
Okay.
I mean, well, these artists, they have a passion for what they do. They love what they do. Is that not the same thing?
I mean, I don't think he hates these artists. He loves them. That's, you know, he loves everybody. But I'm just saying that what they're rapping about does not reflect God in any shape, way, or form. Like, I don't think people should get it twisted.
We gotta refrain too from
Hold
saying.
on. It's a heated topic right here. We talking about faith and we talking about hip hop. Is that oil and water, or is it one thing? I want to have one more. And I'm gonna interject, and then we're gonna move on. These are conversations that need to take place. This is the type of stuff this is the reason why we had this panel.
I think there's two things to keep in mind here. And one has to do with the idea of worship, and specifically in the Bible. You know, in I think it's 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 30, that says, you know, whether you eat or drink, do all to the glory of God. And what it's really talking about is that worship is in everything we do. Whether we're going to school, whether we're rapping, whether we're breakdancing, whether we're going to sleep or waking up, it is all to the praise of God. And the reason why it's all to the praise of God has to do with the gospel. And with Christian rap artists, especially like Lecrae, and especially like Trip Lee, and especially like Flame, if you notice a lot of their songs are following the gospel, and following how Christ has come in and he has paid the penalty for their sin, the debt for their sin, and now they have new life. And they sing and they praise and they rap to the glory of God of how they changed their lives and how that is projecting them to live this life walking in the ways of God. And you can see that in a lot of their songs. And I think that's something to keep in mind, and I think that's a reason why hip-hop can be a platform. The issue is not so much with hip-hop, the issue is with people. So I think that's something to keep in mind.
I'm gonna leave it at that. One thing I want to say is very connected to that when we're talking about, you know, faith and hip hop, which is that could be a form on its own. But one thing I definitely want to say is that hip hop, rap as itself, is a catalyst. This might sound violent, so I'm going to give you two aspects to think about. You have a gun, right? That gun on its own, with no ammunition, really can't do much damage. It's a piece of iron, it's a piece of metal, it's a piece of plastic. The bullet you put in it is actually what does the damage, does the killing. So if hip hop be that gun, the bullet you put in it is the message that comes out of that gun. And hip hop is only just a gun. Or you can flip it in a medical standpoint, from a point of healing, whether it not being so strong and not so violent. You have a syringe. In that syringe, you can put an antidote to a disease. In that syringe, you can put crack. The syringe is but a catalyst. Life or death is in the power of the tongue. So, no matter what you're saying, whether you're saying things through by whatever faith it is, hip-hop is just but a catalyst. It's what you say that's going to either build or destroy. The next one I want to go on to is, and I think this goes along with everything else, how has hip-hop fashion on the lighter side, how has hip-hop fashion affected the world, and how has hip-hop fashion changed from when you started, from yesterday to today? As we know, fashion changes quickly. Hip-hop plays a good part in that. So how do you think it's changed, and where do you think it's going?